Okay, well, this is inadvertent. QuickTime decided to quit itself just a minute ago. So we got a pretty good scope of Phil's side. Judy, were there any action recall from your side of the family? Other than, which is a pretty sweet claim to fame.
Yeah. Well, it's just that I just don't know enough about them, Nick. I wish I did.
Okay.
To answer that question.
Yeah. That's really not altogether uncommon, from what I understand about a lot of immigrant and more rural families. That's fairly common because there's no real luxury of having the recordings and all that stuff, because it was just life as status quo.
And interestingly enough, like my dad's family, there were 5 kids in the family. They were never close. Mm-hmm. They all lived in different places completely. They very seldom saw each other, very seldom spoke to each other. And so the information gets lost when that happens.
Yeah. I think there was even a lot of cousins marrying cousins.
Could be.
You know, that stopped somewhere along the line.
Probably for our betterment.
Yes.
Like, I can tell you that my grandma Jenny Monroe was really a mean person.
Yeah.
All grandmas are mean, Nick.
No.
I disagree.
I don't.
No, she was a mean woman.
Well, we've gone into a bit about Sitting Bull, but I would like to go and ask you what's kind of the significance of him and what he did. Why is he kind of an iconic figure?
The significance of him is that he was trying to protect his people.
Mm-hmm.
They were here first, obviously. Mm-hmm. And they were run off of their land everywhere. They were driven to South Dakota from other areas and given that because nobody else wanted to live there. That's why they drove them there. You've read about what do they call that? The great migration from Oklahoma, where they took all the East Coast Indians and marched them off to Oklahoma, and about 60% of them died.
Yeah.
And they were all the Cherokees, and they were all the mixed tribes, together like that. And so, of course, the Indians didn't like their land being taken away from them like that, and especially the pristine land where they could grow, where they could, survive. And so, in our travels, and we've traveled all over the United States, and we've been to many Indian reservations. And basically what you see is land that you can't grow anything on, land that has no water, and pretty harsh living conditions. And that's what they were given to live on. That's what Sitting Bull was fighting against. And then when they did that with South Dakota and the gold and silver claims, and that was already given them to that land, which is sacred land to the Indians. And so when they were said, okay, you guys can have that, that's your sacred land, and then drove them off of there, and him in being such a rebel rouser and fighting. And as an example, Little Bighorn, I don't know if you know the story about Little Bighorn.
Not
if you've ever read about it, it's a very interesting story. And the first time Grandpa and I went there, there was no recognition of the Indians whatsoever, except that they were bad people and they killed Custer and they killed all of these soldiers, and they had these white flags or monuments all over the place where a soldier was found, a body was found. They also had a grave for the horses. They glorified Custer, said that he was murdered by the Indians, and there were 8,000 Indians there. There was only 300 and some of his troops, so that was his own fault because he was a very stupid man. And he was very arrogant, and what was going on was, because of the South Dakota claims for the silver and the gold, is that the Indians were killing the prospectors because they were coming onto their land. And so Custer was given the job of going out and stopping that from happening. But instead of fighting Indians a proper way, they were going in and raiding the villages and killing all the women and children and just slaughtering people. And they were doing it to the villages. There's 5 different tribes involved in Little Bighorn. And so they were going around and raiding these villages and killing them, just murdering them. And so the Indians said, we've got, and so they, at a river, what's the name of the river?
Yellowstone.
No.
Little Bighorn.
I guess it is a Little Bighorn River. And it's a huge piece of land as well, is there too. It's a pretty somber place. But anyway, so the Indians gathered at this river, and there was 8,000 of them. And they gathered there, their women, children, they were camping there and trying to figure out how to put a halt to all of the slaughtering of the Indians. Custer decided that he was going to attack them and didn't have a clue that there was 8,000 of them there. He was so clueless and a very arrogant, dumb person, actually, when you read about him. But so anyway, they got into the battle. They figured that Custer was killed within the first half hour of the battle. And then it just went on and on and on. And it was a pretty ugly scene. There was bodies everywhere. There were horses everywhere. They've got a graveyard there where they buried the soldiers, but they didn't do anything with the Indian bodies. So it was kind of discouraging the first time we went there because they were glorifying Custer, which we all know that he wasn't a good person and he wasn't a good soldier. And so the second time we went there, which was about 10 years apart, it was a complete. The guy that gave us dissertation was actually a Blackfoot Indian, and his grandfather or father was buried out, and he could show us his grave. And so you got the other side of it, because the first time we went there, we got the military side of it. Mm-hmm. The second time we went there, we had this American Indian, whose father actually died there and gave the dissertation of what actually happened there. And they also had red granite markers all over the fields for the Indian bodies. So they were recognizing where they had found them. And then they also built this monument. It's a beautiful half-circle thing with these big, huge iron horses around it. And they've got the names of the 5 tribes in there and the prominent people in the tribes. And so they've got actual names on there. The Irakawa, the Sioux, the Blackfoot. There was a camp, I think. But there were 5 tribes there. And so they literally slaughtered Custer and his men.
Wow.
He knows the story.
But it put a halt to them flying around to the But that's when he fled. He had to flee the United States from that point forward because he was wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was there.
Yeah.
That's part of the planning.
Okay. Question for you. When were the dates that you went to that memorial? Do you know?
When we went. The first time it was on our first trip. The first time was 1999. 1999 was the first time.
Yeah.
So about 2009 would have been the second time.
It's interesting to see the revisionism that's gone on historically, and just in the last decade and a half, and how unfavorably it's turned for so many of these once historical figures. Like Christopher Columbus is a prime example of that. And it's encouraging to see the truth coming out more and more as we're able to get more older primary sources.
Right.
So, the second question I have is what part did play at Little Bighorn? You said you planned and more obviously fought.
They were there trying to figure out how to stop the massacres. What it was, they were having a powwow, is what you call it. And they, go into their tents and smoke their pipes and have this circle. In the Southwest, they call them kivas. I don't know, Jeff and I have actually gotten into kivas. They're usually a big hole on the ground, and you step down into it, and they'll have seating all the way around, and they would sit in there and smoke their peyote and talk about what their plans were for the tribe or whatever. But that's what they were doing at Little Bighorn. They were not planning on being at war. They were planning on trying to figure out how do we put a halt to what's going on.
Okay.
And and then Custer attacked them. So
Yeah.
it's kind of but they were just there to plan and to try to figure out what to do about all this mayhem that was going on.
Okay. Well, cool. Thank you. So we'll start with Phil for this next question. Can you just walk me a little bit through the process of how you guys have uncovered all of this information? And I know it's probably a joint effort on your guys' part, so as it makes sense to answer the question.
Well, I think, both of us have had a little bit of knowledge about our family tree. And it wasn't probably until the last, maybe 5 to 10 years that we probably started paying more serious attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's an aging thing, Nick. I'm not sure how that works or why. And, we're slowing down, not busy, and so more time to delve into those kinds of things. And it's important. Don't get me wrong. But, you're carving out a career, you're carving out a family and doing those things, and your attentions get diverted. But, and I'm glad you're asking this, and I think it was Ashley that really got us kind of started on this last year when she was asking for help on a school project that she was doing. And so we really started to get serious about this, both of us, on taking a look at our family tree and, what our roots were and digging in a little bit deeper and actually, doing a lot of stuff on the internet, talking to a lot of family and friends who had actually started doing their own research ahead of us. And so my cousin Hannah in California was a big help. She could fill in a lot of pieces and a lot of the blanks that we didn't know anything about or couldn't remember. And of course, my cousin Karen here in Seattle, very instrumental in helping on the Italian side of the family. Mm-hmm. So we just started, asking questions, talking to people, and found out that they were helpful, and also, knew this, and somebody didn't know that, but they were able to, put the whole story together and fill in a lot of blanks. So it's just been, like I said, in the last 5 to 10 years that we really, really got serious about our genealogy, family tree, etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But using family resources, looking at stuff in the library, articles and checking and finding information where we could. Yeah, I didn't know anything about design other than it was a hard place to spell.
Yeah.
But so we went on the internet and looked it up, found out information about it, and then checked dates, and pretty soon things started to make sense and understood what was going on at that particular time in that area. So it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think my final question, this one's actually not on the list. As you can see, we've gone through a lot of these just in talking about it. So I guess what do you guys, what have you found to be significant, or how has looking into your guys' history over the last year or so affected your thinking, or how has it impacted you guys? What do you find significant about it?
Well, I think that there's a commonality, and maybe it's because of our age, but they were all hard-working people. Grandma said, looking for a better life, an opportunity, and were able to kind of carve things out for themselves, however they did, and seemed to be. They were very family-oriented. That seemed to be real apparent, and I think that's important. But
Well, I think you also, Nick, when you go back and start looking at these people and their lives and what they went through and stuff, that how lucky we are to be in this era that we are in versus what they grew up in.
Right.
I know my grandmother, I spent a ton of time with my grandmother when I was growing up because she was single. I always knew her as a single person. And she had a hard life. She had a very, very hard life. And so I just feel that we're lucky people
Mm-hmm.
that was the same drive to do better.
Yeah. Well,
I think you know, I want to know more because just like you're asking me now, but I know Marissa's going to be asking me something, or maybe Olivia, or any of the kids, grandkids, and I want to be prepared to give them actual answers. And your baby, when your baby comes along, we want to be able to share the same stories we're sharing right now and give them, the children, you know, a good background and a good feeling about themselves. I think it helps kids. Maybe it's old man talking, but I think it just it keeps you grounded as long as you know where your roots are, where you come from, you know. And I think it helps also in being a good citizen, recognizing that there's different people, you know, especially now. I mean, we got all kinds of people coming to the country from all over the world, and we need to accept one another and their concepts, their ideas. The school Marissa goes to, for example, the kids would wear the veils in her school.
Mm-hmm.
More and more of that here. Pardon me? All kinds of, you know, children that we didn't have in our growing up. Maybe you didn't experience that when you were in high school just a few years ago. But the world's changing. I think as long as kids know where they fit in, you know, I think it helps. And so more information we can give them, more help we can give them, I think it makes them better citizens and accept their peers, you know, accept others.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll show that we all have a common immigrant background. I mean, I think that's one thing we've really exposed is we have a very old family history with the American Indians, and then also a very young family history as far as immigration and dating just to the late 1800s and early 1900s. So, well, cool. I guess that's about all I have as far as the interview goes, so I'll just throw my end cap in here. January 6, 2016 interview with Phil and Judy LaCastro, and the interviewer was Nicholas Burns.